right, everyone looks so good this morning. Come on, give yourselves a round of applause for being here, looking so beautiful this morning. Wake up. Come on, so glad that you are here. If you're here in person or joining us online, you are in the best place that you could be on the weekend. You're in God's house. You made it. You're here, and we're so glad that you're spending part of your weekend with us here at Movement Church. And we're getting ready to jump into part 3 of our Bad Blood series that we're in leading up to Easter next week. And really quickly, I just want to point something out to you. Here at your chair, you've got 2 different Easter invites, and I just want to point these out to you. So we've got one more week to invite some people to be here with us next Sunday for Easter, and it's going to be an amazing experience. Remember, we're shifting our time for next week. Next week for Easter, it's 9:15 and 11 a.m. We've got 2 Easter services, and we've got some fun things going on. We've got the Good Waffle Company coming out, and they're going to have some amazing sweet and savory treats for every single person that's here. We've got fun stuff planned for the kids. Easter Bunny's going to be here. Get some pictures with him outside, and the weather's looking like it's going to be beautiful. But listen, there's 2 different invites at your chair. Get them out right now. There's a business card size one. Here's what I want you to do with those. I want you to take those with you this week, and everywhere you go, you've got an opportunity to invite someone to come to Easter. Maybe you're going out to eat. Go out to eat and leave an extremely generous tip for your server. And when I say extremely generous, I don't mean 20%, because 20% is normal. So leave something like extravagant for your server, and then drop an Easter invite in there with them. Invite them to come and be at Easter with us. And then there's another invite there that you've got, and it's a larger one. On the back side of it, it's blank. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to take those with you this week, and I want you to handwrite a note to somebody. And so maybe it's your neighbor who you've been wanting to invite to church. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's a family member, whoever it might be. And I want you to just write a personal and say, hey, I would love for you to join me at my church for Easter. I'm going to be at the 9:15 service. I'd love for you to be there. And bring that to a few people this week and personally invite them to join you for Easter here at Movement, because it's going to be an amazing experience. We've got a Facebook event that you can share. If you're online, you can hop on there and share that with people and invite them that way. But listen, you can be part of changing the course of eternity for people simply by inviting them to be with us at church next Sunday for Easter. It's going to be an incredible experience. All right, we're jumping in. Part 3 of our Bad Blood series, so get out something to write with. It's just so great being together, worshiping together. I love being in the room with y'all. There's just something that makes it feel different when we get to gather and get to be together. It was good. And but as we jump into part 3 today, I think that lots of us love a good miracle story. Like we love hearing the miracle story, like when God shows up in a crazy way and does something absolutely incredible that maybe no one had expected or someone had been praying for a long time. Like when someone brings their tithe for the first time ever, like they're finally in a place where they're like, man, God, I'm going to trust you with the first 10% of what I have, and they finally do it. They bring it on a Sunday, and then the following day, Monday, there's that unexpected promotion just lands in their lap. Like it's a miracle. Like God, I trusted you, and then you showed up in a miraculous way. The problem is there's some of us who've been faithfully tithing for years, and we're like barely scraping by. Like we're struggling to pay the bills. Like, God, what in the world's going on? Like I've been faithful to do this. Like where's my miracle? How come you haven't shown up like that for me? Or maybe you've got a friend who's been praying for a miraculous healing to take place, and God shows up, and their small, dumb little poodle is saved from imminent death. Come on, y'all supposed to have some fun. Come on. Maybe there's too many poodle owners in the room, but God shows up, and their dog is saved, and you've been praying for a personal family friend for years for miraculous healing, and God doesn't show up, and they pass away. So God, where's my miracle? Like you healed the poodle. Why couldn't you heal this person? So what do we do when we find ourselves disappointed with God? What do we do when we feel like we've been let down? God, you could have showed up and you didn't. Or why did you let that happen? Why didn't you do the thing that I wanted you to do? Maybe it's that baby that you've prayed for faithfully, and it never happened. Or the engagement that you've been praying for and hoped for, and you're still waiting on it. Maybe it's the miracle that you believed in faith that God would do, and he just still hasn't done it, even though you know he has the ability to do it. Like, what do you do when you feel that way and there's something that you want to say to God, but you, out of reverence, you're not quite sure if you should really say it out loud? Like, because you've got some reverence, but you're wondering, like, God, where are you? How come you're not showing up in this moment for me? Like, where's the miracle that I've been believing for and hoping for? And maybe you find yourself here today, and you're slightly, or maybe even more than slightly disappointed with Jesus. You're angry at him. Maybe you've got some bad blood with him. And it's not that you don't want to trust him. It's just that in this moment you're finding it very difficult to trust him because he's not doing the thing that you know he's capable of doing. If we're honest, there may be some of us who maybe have like some low-grade anger with him. So what do I do when I'm holding a grudge against Jesus? What do I do when I've got some bad blood with him? Because in part one of this series, we talked about the ability to forgive small offenses, like the little things that if we're not careful, they just accumulate and get under our skin and bother us. But we talked about forgiving those in the moment. And then last week, we talked about real big betrayals, hurts, and wounds. And so how do we forgive those? How do I have the faith to forgive those things? And today, I just want to talk about how do I forgive God? How do I, if I'm holding a grudge against him, what do I do? And for those of you that are, that want to get technical, we don't ever forgive God because he doesn't sin, and so he's not in need of forgiveness. But thinking about it this way, to say we forgive him would kind of be unfair, but perhaps there's some of us in the room today or watching online, like, you need to reconcile with him. There's a gap, there's a divide, because you're holding a grudge. You feel like you've been slighted, like you've been wronged. And by faith, maybe today you need to learn how to trust again. So what do I do when I have bad blood with Jesus? When Christy and I got married fairly young, we were 24 and 23, and when we got married, we kind of knew that when we did, we were going to wait. We wanted to enjoy at least a couple of years together as just a couple before we had children. And so we just said, hey, we're going to give it 2-3 years, and then we'll kind of jump into that process of starting kids. And so we waited 2 or 3 years, and then we decided to start trying to build a family. And in that season, we were watching all of our friends and everyone around us having kids. Like they would try for 2 months and having kids. Some of them were like, we honestly don't even know what happened. We weren't even trying, and they'd have kids. We just met, they're we just look at each other and we get pregnant. That's what it felt like in that season. And it seemed that way for everybody else in our life, but not for us. And so we tried for 3 years. And all we wound up with was just hurt and disappointment and wounds. It's like, Jesus, what in the world? What's happening? We're not asking you for a lot here. We're not even asking you to do something that you don't do regularly every single day. You can do all things. What's going on? What are you doing? We're faithful. We serve you. We're in our church and we're serving there and we give and we're doing all the things that we're supposed to do. Come on, where you at? So we go through that, and then we decide that we're going to go the route of doing some fertility treatments in order to have time. So we tried a bunch of things that didn't work, and now this journey is just continuing. And eventually we decided that we were going to go through IVF, and the provision behind how that happened is a whole other story that we don't have time for today. So we go through this whole emotional process of infertility and IVF, and it's that includes Christy had to get shots every single day, and I had to be the one to do it. So you talk about building resentment, or the potential for that, having to give a shot every single day, and on top of doctor's visits and procedures and all the different things. And so we go through this entire emotional journey together, and we finally get to the day where we're going to find out if it worked. We were going to get a phone call from a nurse at the place that we were at. And I remember I was at work. I was on staff at our sending church, and I remember I was like, I couldn't do anything that day. I could do nothing. I went out to lunch with a friend, literally sat there, ordered food, couldn't eat it. So my stomach was just in knots the entire time. And we're actually out to eat lunch, and I get the phone call from the nurse, who we loved our nurse. She was incredible with us the whole way, the sweetest thing. And she finally said the words that we had longed to hear for so long. She said, "Hey, Jeff, I just want to let you know, it worked. Christy's pregnant." And so I was like, I got to go. And so I left lunch and got up, and we both worked at the same place. She was working at the school that the church had. So I ran there and said, "Hey, babe," they called. And I told her, and I gave her the news. And we were so excited, and tears of joy. And we're just it's ecstatic because we finally heard the words that we'd longed to hear for so long. And I don't even think, I think we maybe told our parents. I honestly don't remember. That we didn't tell a whole lot of people. So we fast forward a few weeks, and then we have our first appointment at the fertility practice, the first ultrasound. Now, all this is new to us. We don't know what's happening, what's going on, none of it. So we show up, and we get there, and the doctor's doing the ultrasound, and he just looks at us, he goes, "Hey, you just need to know, there's not one heartbeat, there's two." And I said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, there's two heartbeats. You're having twins." And we're like, "Okay, we've been longing so long for one. Sure, we'll take two. We'll figure it out. We're not sure what's happening, but now we've got two." And so we start telling a few more people, telling our parents, and we're getting excited. And so a few more weeks go by, and we go to our first actual appointment with her regular OBGYN, and we get in there. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like this before. You just know something's not right. And so we get in there, and we're with the doctor, and she hits the lights and got the ultrasound thing out and everything else, and she just gets eerily quiet. And she starts shifting and moving stuff around and getting really uncomfortable. And then she finally just stops doing what she's doing, puts everything down, turns the lights back on, and just looks at us. She said, I'm so sorry, but there's no heartbeats." And we were devastated. Devastated. Jesus, how in the world does this happen? All the hope that you allowed us to be built up inside of us, the emotional roller coaster we've been on, we've gone from this is never going to happen to now it's finally happening, and there's two, and you took it? This is what you did? This is how you handled this? Really? So what I want to do today is I want to look at a powerful encounter in the Old Testament about a woman who had perhaps had to reconcile with some disappointments that she had with God. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about her husband, and then talk about her a little bit. Her husband's name is Elkanah, and he had two wives actually. One of them was Hannah, who we're going to talk about today, and the other one, his other wife, was named Peninnah. And there was a serious rivalry between these two women. Now, in the Old Testament, something that's really important to know is names carry real significance for people. They're quite meaningful and important. And Elkanah actually means this. It means that God has created a son, or that God will give you a son. So throughout his entire life, when people would walk up and say, "Hey, Elkanah," what he would hear, and really what they were saying is "Hey, God's going to give you a son. Hey, God's created a son for you." So when he married Hannah, his assumption would be I'm going to get a son. But unfortunately, Hannah was not able to bear children. And that's why many scholars actually believe that he took on a second wife, Peninnah. But you can only imagine Hannah's internal dialogue that's taking place for her. She couldn't have a child, And so especially in her culture, she would have felt like a failure. Perhaps she would have felt some shame, maybe useless, and cry out and say, God, like, where are you in this? Like, you're the author of life. Why won't you allow me to bear a child? So each year we read that this family, Elkanah and Hannah and Peninnah, that they would travel and go to a place called Shiloh, and there they would offer worship and sacrifices to God. And the problem is that Peninnah, who could bear children and did, she would take every opportunity she had, especially on this trip, to go worship, especially on this trip, to mess with and throw shade at Hannah. We'll pick it up 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. It says, so Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. And I imagine that the way verse 7 starts is so incredibly painful. Maybe it's words that are really painful for you. It says, year after year, it was the same. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle, and each time Hannah would be reduced to tears. She wouldn't even eat. Year after year, things never changed. Some of you have maybe walked this experience, or perhaps are walking this experience, that year after year after year, it's not changing. And I want to try and get into this story. Like, we've got Hannah, this sweet, godly young lady, and then we've got Peninnah, who's literally the definition of a mean girl. Like, she's cruel and she's vicious and she's nasty. And I can only imagine, like, what Hannah's mindset is. Like, God, why in the world would you bless Peninnah with kids and not me? Like, she's the literal worst. Like, if you fast forward and think about it like today, like, God, I've been faithful. You know, I saved myself for my spouse. Like, I read my Bible. Jesus, I serve in the nursery with the kids that no one else wants to serve with. I'm faithful. I give. I love you. There's all these people who do all these different things, and yet, God, you're giving them the thing that I want. I've done everything you've asked for. Where are you? I think perhaps Hannah did the same thing that many of us would do. She prayed, she believed, and then she waited. And she waited, and she waited, and then nothing. Year after gut-wrenching year. The same thing. And maybe someone today can relate to that. You've prayed and you've believed and you've been waiting for that person to give their heart to Jesus, but year after year after year, nothing changes. Or you pray and you believe for that job with benefits that's going to provide, and yet that job always seems to be out of reach. You ask God for healing for somebody that you love and you've believed for and you've hoped for, and yet He didn't do anything. Jesus, why are you doing this for others, but you won't do it for me? Maybe you've prayed and you've asked God over and over and over again, Lord, take my depression away. I beg of you to take it. I know that you can, but year after year after year, I still fight just to get through the day. It could be anything. It could be the marriage that never seems to get better. The financial hardship that month after month and year after year you're believing that you're going to get ahead of, but you're always behind. Dreaming and hoping of someone to do life with, yet you still feel alone. You start to wonder, Jesus, where are you? I trusted you. I serve you. I love you. Like, why aren't you here? Why aren't you answering? Like, do you even hear me? Do you even care? Where are you? And so you pray, and you believe, and you wait. And another year goes by. If you've ever felt like that, you can imagine exactly how Hannah felt in this story. Now, she's married to this man, Elkanah, who, as best as we can tell from Scripture, he's a pretty good guy. However, the problem is that Elkanah is still a dude. And ladies, you need to understand something about men. You can't entirely remove the dude out of a man. It's just impossible. And so what that means is that sometimes, and for some of us it's more often than others, we say and do stupid things. That's just reality. It's like something inside of us that we're not sure what to do, and so sometimes we ask stupid questions and like just dumb questions. I'm gonna show you one. We pick up. So remember, Peninnah's been taunting Hannah, and she's depressed and she's angry and she's not eating. So we pick up in verse 8. Elkanah shows up and he goes, "Why are you crying, Hannah? Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children?" By the way, that's not the stupid question. The stupid question's coming. He goes on to say, "You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?" Honestly, he thought this was an okay question to ask. Like, why are you so upset, Hannah? Why are you so upset you don't have kids? You've got me. Now, Hannah's response to this question is not recorded in Scripture. However, I imagine she said something along the lines of, "Would you like to rephrase your question? Because you don't want the answer to the question that you just asked me." So you can feel her pain, right? She's tormented. God bless her husband, but says some stupid stuff. She's doing everything she possibly can to trust in God, and yet the only thing that she wants that God has the power to give, God seems to withhold from her. And then she's got this mean girl, Peninnah, who is like running around with what I can imagine are just the brattiest kids in the world. And she's always criticizing her and belittling her, and a husband who's a good man but just keeps putting his foot in his mouth. Like, so what do you do when you wake up and you find yourself disappointed because God didn't do what you know He can do? And what I want to show you is exactly what Hannah did, and it might be something that in this moment, in this season of your life is really helpful. And honestly, you probably won't hear this very often. Maybe if you spend a whole lot of your life in church, maybe you've never heard this, or like church never said, "Hey, like this is something you can do," or a pastor telling you to do this. And I wouldn't recommend doing this like every single day for the next 20 years, but perhaps based on where you are, this might be what you need to do in the moment. What Hannah did, Hannah just unloaded on God. Just unloaded. Like, she just let it rip and let it go, didn't care. She took everything that she was feeling, all the hurt, all the pain, all the disappointment, all the "I've been faithful in Jesus, you haven't shown," all of that, and didn't hold back. She took all that pain, all that hurt, all that disappointment, all the anguish, all the agony, and she just hurls it at God. And I wish we knew exactly what it was, but Scripture doesn't tell us exactly what it is, but Scripture does tell us what she did and really her mood and what was taking place. So we continue on in verse 9. It says, "Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh," so they've made this journey and they're worshiping. They've sacrificed as a family. It says, Hannah got up and went to pray. And Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. So the priest is there. And then listen to what it says Hannah did. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. She takes this She takes her anguish, she takes her bitterness, she takes her hurts, she takes her wounds, and she just lays it all out. Like from the depths of her heart, she cries in anguish and in bitterness. And I don't know if it was something like, God, this is not fair. Why have you done this? Why won't you answer? Why won't you make this right? Do you not care? Like, I believe in you. I've been trying to trust you. I've been faithful. I always show up for you. Why are you not showing up for me? Yeah, I remember being in the basement of our house shortly after the miscarriage. And I was trying, with everything I had, I was trying to just move on. I was trying just to push through, to do the right things, to say the right things, to show up and just do the things that you're supposed to do. Like, just keep pressing on. And I'll never forget, I was reading. I was reading in the Psalms, and I read this verse, Psalm 89:14. It says, righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. And I remember in that moment, I was sitting in the basement alone. I remember without any hesitation, without any remorse, without any second thought, I read that verse out loud. I said, it says that righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. And immediately out loud, I said, no, they're not. I said, they can't be. I said, God, because what you did was neither righteous nor just. And honestly, I wish I could tell you everything else I said in that moment, but you wouldn't let me continue to pastor this church if I did. I said, no, they're not. I just unloaded and told God exactly how I felt, that I'd had enough. I just want to tell you, if you ever find yourself hurt or feeling disappointed, let him know. Pour out your heart. He is big enough to handle your hurt. David did it. Like, God, why won't you help me? Why won't you stop my enemies from pursuing me? The prophet Jeremiah cried out. Jesus cried out on the cross, God, why have you forsaken me? I was faithful. I showed up. I did everything I was supposed to do. Why are you not here for me in this moment? Because listen to me. God loves you. And he understands your pain. He welcomes your questions. He's big enough to handle your doubts. With everything in my heart, I truly believe, I think that he would rather have you scream at him with disappointment than to walk away with hurt. If you ever find yourself disappointed, hurt, or disillusioned, listen to me. He's big enough to handle it. Take it to him. Hannah unloaded on him. And then in the middle of that prayer, in the middle of hurling everything that she had at him, she just cried out and said, God, if you give me a son, I'll give him back to you. If you'll just give me a son, I'll return him to you. I'll give every moment of his life back to you. And then there's this interesting dialogue between her and the priest Eli, which we don't have time to get into today, but at the end of their conversation, Eli just looks at her and says, hey, may God grant you your request. But there's no immediate change. Like, the heavens don't open up. An angel doesn't show up. There's no beaming light from heaven shining down. She walks away from this conversation and this prayer, and nothing has changed. Nothing's happened. She still has to deal with Peninnah. Her husband is still going to say some stupid things. She has no sign that anything is going to get better. So what does she do? She does the same thing that you might do when you find yourself disappointed in Jesus, she continues by faith, even though she might not feel like it. She continues to try her best to hold on to God and believe that He's still good. She hangs on. She still tries to trust. She doesn't see it. She can't see what God is doing. It doesn't make sense what He's doing. But even though she can't see it, she still believes that He's doing something. And like with whatever little bit of faith she has left, she continues to hold on, believing that God is still good. She holds on and she doesn't let go. And we fast forward to verse 19 in this chapter, and I think it's so emotional, but so helpful. So 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 19, it says, the entire family got up early the next morning and went to worship the Lord once more. And I love the way that this is phrased. They got up. Hannah got up. Still seeing that nothing has changed. Still seeing that her circumstance is what it was the day before. Still not knowing if anything is ever going to be any different. And what does she do? She goes and she worships once more. Once more. In fact, right now, stand up right to your feet, right where you are. At home, wherever you're watching, stand up. Because when it hurts, and when I'm disappointed, when I'm mad, when I'm angry, when I'm broken, when it's been year after year after year, what do I do? And listen, here's what I want to encourage you to do. Keep showing up. Keep showing up. Get up, even though the circumstance hasn't changed, even though you don't know what's promised for tomorrow, even though you still got the issue, you still got the diagnosis, you still have the circumstance. Keep showing up once more. Get up and go worship one more time. Get up and open your Bible one more time. Keep showing up, just like Hannah would do. Once more. Well, it hasn't changed yet. It's okay. Show up again. But it hasn't changed yet. Show up again. Keep showing up. But what if it hasn't changed? Keep going. Keep worshiping. Keep going. Show up one more time. In the middle of all of our situation, Christy and I had to find a way to keep showing up. I had to keep showing up. I had to keep finding a way to show up to work at church every day. Keep showing up on Sunday and worshiping. And if you'll do that, if you'll keep showing up, we discovered this, and you'll discover this as well, that a waiting season is never a wasted season. A waiting season is never a wasted season. Just because you don't see something doesn't mean that God isn't doing something. That doesn't mean that His Spirit is not working. It doesn't mean that He's still not good. It doesn't mean that He doesn't hear the cry of your heart. You see, Jesus did something in mine and in Christy's heart after that loss, while we were still waiting. Something that I don't think He would have been able to do in any other situation. In that season of waiting, Jesus opened our hearts to the idea of adoption. something that we never even dreamed of or thought. In fact, not only did we not dream about it or think of, like, we were like, we are not going to do that. We don't want to adopt. But in that season of loss and in that season of waiting, God softened our hearts to the idea of adoption. What we didn't know, but what He understood and could see, is knowing that years down the road, an unforeseeable tragedy would happen in our family. And Christy and I would be in the position of adopting our niece and our nephew into our family. And that waiting season to have kids was painful, but it was not wasted. A waiting season is not a wasted season. And in Hannah's case, God hears the cries of her heart and then gives her the desire of her heart. And that may happen in your lifetime, and it also might not. But no matter what the outcome is, the goodness and the faithfulness of Jesus is not based on what I can or can't see. His goodness and His faithfulness is based on who He is. Verse 19 and 20, it says, they returned home to Ramah. And when Elkanah slept with Hannah, the Lord remembered her plea. And in due time she gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I asked the Lord for him. You see, God's delays are not necessarily God's denials. God delayed our ability to have children. And He did something in a season of hurt and a season of waiting that He could have only done then. And God did hear the cry of our heart and give us the desire of our heart. And we've got 4 beautiful children. 2 of them are biological and 2 of them are adopted. We've got a beautiful family that only God could have pieced together. And only in a way that He could have done it. Just because you don't see it in the moment doesn't mean you won't see it in your lifetime. You've got to keep showing up. Keep worshiping. Keep showing up. Keep praying and keep showing up.